That brings us to the third fight from the top, the first in an embarrassment of championship riches. The top off this card, it is a women's flyweight championship fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade. Shevchenko, the 33-year-old Kyrgyzstani by way of Peru, is 20-3 overall. She is 9-2 in the UFC. Most notably, both of those losses having come at the hands of pound-for-pound queen Amanda Nunes. The second one, very close. But even since that second Nunes fight, she is on a 6-fight winning streak. Having fought twice last year, she destroyed Caitlin Chookagian at UFC 247 with third-round punches and elbows. She took a unanimous decision over Jennifer Maia at UFC 255 last November. She will be welcoming her newest challenger, Andrade. The 29-year-old Brazilian is the first woman to compete in 3 different weight divisions in the UFC. She is the first woman to be ranked in the top 10 in 3 different weight divisions in the UFC. She is 21-8 overall. She is 12-6 in the UFC. She lost her UFC strawweight title to Weili Zhang at UFC Fight Night 157 back in August of 2019. She came back from that and lost a close split decision to Rose Namajunas at UFC 251. She then moved up to the flyweight division and put away Chookagian late in the first round of their meeting at UFC Fight Night Ortega versus Korean Zombie. Shevchenko is a prohibitive favorite here. She's out there minus 390, minus 400, where you can get Andrade at plus 320 or plus 325 on the comeback. Keith, are those odds are those odds correct? Or is there any value there? And who do you have in the fight?
Well, I mean, no. So the odds aren't correct. Negative 420 or whatever it was. I understand why Valentina Shevchenko was like unstoppable, but Jessica Andrade is a former champion. She's an absolute bull. She can land one shot. She can get to the ground and pound. So she definitely has a shot. So I think the odds are off. Now, am I saying I'm taking her? Well, let's wait a minute. Now, you know how I feel about Valentina Shevchenko. She's one of my favorite people to break down film. She is a absolute fantastic counter striker. What I love about her, she has so much variety in her strikes. She'll attack all the areas of the body, go to the body, go to the head, go to the legs. She's got good volume, even though and I always use Chris Cyborg as the example, but even though she's a counter striker, she's a pressure counter striker. She's got to be high volume. Like you got to throw one punch at her, she's going to counter with like a 4-piece combination. And it's one of those ones like you every time you throw a jab, she hits you with 3 punches. You start getting gunshot yourself. She uses great feints to draw those attacks out. She's got great speed. She might have the best jab in women's MMA. She might have one of the best jabs regardless of gender, I should really say. She's so accurate. She's so good at sliding in and out of range. And, when she decides to be on the offensive, she'll hit you, pop, get out before you can counter. She's very good at countering leg kicks. She doesn't really check leg kicks. She more just like, oh, you got to throw a leg kick at me? Good. While you throw your leg kick at me, I'm going to blast you with a power shot. And every single time you throw a leg kick, she smashes you in the face with a punch. You probably stop throwing leg kicks. And it's funny because we always think of Valentina Shevchenko, and I shouldn't say we, I should just talk for myself, but most people, when we think about Valentina Shevchenko, you talk about her unbelievable stand-up. Her ground game might even be even better than her stand-up. She gets you, if she gets the clinch takedowns. I mean, I think about like Juliana Pena, someone who's known for her wrestling, someone who's supposed to be better in the grappling, and like she was throwing her. She was dominating her on the ground. Throws, trips, she gets you down, amazing top control. You're not going to get back up. Brutal ground and pound. She's so well-rounded, and it's the right weight class. I mean, obviously, when she was fighting 135, it just fits her perfectly. Move with Jessica Andrade. The thing that stands out to me is she just has insane output. For someone who throws hard for her to keep coming, she fights in blitzes. She tends to like get in and overwhelm with the output that she'll get in when she gets in. She can be so aggressive. She almost runs at her opponent. And we saw that actually saw that. That's how she got blasted by a Weili Zhang punch. She was like ran at her and ran right into a punch. But when she finds her range, she can hurt you. She'll go to the body. She'll go up top. And we saw it against Caitlin Chikagian. She hits with different power at 125. The problem is she really struggles to find her range at time because she chases instead of cutting off her opponent. And the ones who are able to avoid getting trapped does very well. I mean, think about both fights in Rose Namajunas. She had success because she couldn't catch Rose Namajunas. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is a really fantastic fighter to watch how to beat Jessica Andrade. What Joanna was doing is she was making her chase her, and suddenly she would spring forward, and she kind of timed where she was going to come next. And then while Jessica was taking a step forward, Joanna was hitting her with 3 punches at that spot that she kind of chase you, and then spring her. It was absolutely fantastic. Now, but if she traps you, you're in big trouble because she's going to make you pay in those moments. She doesn't throw jabs. She doesn't throw shots to score points. She throws shots to end you, and they're all power shots, hooks, uppercuts. She has that crushing power. She's now added in calf kicks, which is a great thing to add for her because if she can take out your calves while she's getting in that range, your ability to get away and use movement is going to really be limited. That said, because she sits on her punches so much, she's open to getting leg kicked herself. So if you can actually chase and get her to where she's going to step, go to the legs instead, you can kind of zap some of her power. The other thing you got to remember is how easily she can get the fight to the ground. One, she's kind of shorter than her opponent. She's always on the hips. But also, she's just insanely strong. We always think about the knockout that won the title against Rose Namajunas, which she picked her up and slammed her. But like, don't forget that was the 3rd time she slammed Rose Namajunas. That wasn't just a one time. Like this is something she can easily do. And then if she gets on top, the crippling ground and pound. I mean, you look at the Claudia Gadelha fight is a good example. I'm intrigued by this matchup. I think the UFC rushed it a little bit. I would have rather than them built it up. Like I always feel like the most marketable fight or the biggest challenge doesn't always have to be the one you make right away. I think sometimes you should you gotta let it marinate a little bit. And I feel like they should have did it with this matchup. I feel like they should have let Andrade get a couple more wins, and then she would seem like a bigger threat if she had 3 or 4 wins, and she probably wouldn't be a plus 350 underdog. If she'd probably still be an underdog, but maybe it's plus 250. Andrade is a different opponent than Shevchenko has faced at 125. She has more power than anybody Shevchenko has faced. And she's also going to push forward. Like, she's going to make Shevchenko work, which is why I really like this matchup. However, I see 2 ways Shevchenko could really win this fight. Well, 3. One is if she turns it to a wrestling match. She actually makes Jessica Andrade defensive wrestle, which is a very big possibility, being that she's bigger than her. She's such a fantastic grappler herself. But the other 2 ways on the feet, the one way where I just talked about Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Valentina Shevchenko could do the same thing. Get her, chase her, then beat her to the spot that they're going to be at. But she also might take the strategy, which I think is more likely what Weili Zhang did. And in bets is instead of backing up, which everyone does against Jessica Andrade, and this is something that Valentina Shevchenko does very well, refuse to give any ground. And you hold your ground and you beat them to the punch with bigger, harder shots, straight punches. When she's throwing hooks, you're throwing straight punches down this pipe. And we know how hard Valentina Shevchenko can crack. And what's really different is when you're a pressure fighter and you're so used to forcing people off their back foot, you kind of overreach because you're reaching behind the person. You're kind of swinging for 1 or 2 steps behind them. And those hooks don't land as much because you're actually inside the hooks. If she just holds her ground, which I think she can land some big shots. And I actually think that's what's going to happen. I think Andrade's going to get too aggressive at one point, and I think Shevchenko's going to put her out with a shot. Give me Valentina Shevchenko by 3rd round TKO.
Thank you. I was asked for my off-the-cuff prediction on my non-Sherdog show earlier this week, and before I started watching film, I thought the odds were way too wide, and I was really on the point of picking Andrade outright. The fights that I watched and analyzed that really changed my mind about it were both of their fights with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Andrade's fight with Weili Zhang for the reasons you mentioned. Shevchenko, just on top of obviously one of the most complete skill sets in the sport, in any division, any gender, and her strength and athleticism, she's incredibly good mentally at not allowing the fight to be dictated to her. Like you mentioned, like just her, the just refusing to give ground, or I mean the way she beat Joanna was, for the most part, refusing to chase her. And considering that the routes I saw to victory for Andrade, they didn't require Shevchenko to just flat out make a mistake and slip on a banana peel, but they depended on her allowing herself to be taken out of her comfort zone and not always fighting to her best advantage. If I'm looking for ways the underdog can win that involve, a dominant champ making mental errors like that, I've clearly stepped too far out on the branch. I'll be interested to see if Andrade can just collapse the pocket on her, get her hands on her, and work for takedowns. Just kind of take her down there. Because despite Shevchenko's outstanding grappling, I do think Andrade, if she can get on the ground, especially on top, is going to be able to hurt her with ground and pound. She's a brute on the ground. I'll be interested to see if she tries to attack the body when they're on the feet. But ultimately, it's going to be a lot of Andrade, I think, coming at Shevchenko, and whether Shevchenko gives ground and just kind of chews her up with, gives her the death by 1,000 cuts approach, or just stands her ground and starts running her into really hard counters. I do think it's Shevchenko's fight to lose. There's value on Andrade here as a greater than 3-1 underdog, but no matter how good the community colleges are here in Texas, I will not be putting any of my kids' college fund on it. So give me Shevchenko by unanimous decision, and it probably ends up being one where she maybe loses a round, but also gets a 10-8 somewhere in there. Give me like a 49-45 or something. Josh, are you going to dissent from us? Do you have the underdog, the upset special going?
No, I think Shevchenko retains the title, probably on points, for a lot of the reasons you guys laid out. I think she just moves too well, and she's too clear on her objectives in the cage. And she's undeniably skilled in making that happen, regardless of what the opponent's going to bring at her. I think Andrade brings some weapons that she may not have had to face, but also those weapons leave Andrade open. And with someone like Shevchenko, who's a sniper, who's so good at picking shots, who's so good at really mapping out a game plan and executing it, I just don't think that Andrade, who is 4 inches shorter, has a significant reach disadvantage, is going to be able to close the distance, get to Shevchenko's chin. And if they lock up and tie up, it's a stalemate at best, I think, for Andrade, who's going to try and rely on her strength, but coming up in weight against someone who fought at a heavier weight class to the naturally bigger woman, I think is going to be difficult for her to sort out. And Shevchenko is probably the better technical grappler, especially inside the clinch. So sneaky, trips and takedowns and throws and all sorts of stuff you don't see coming. So I think at a certain point, Andrade's physicality will make her feel dangerous within the first 2 rounds. But once Andrade has that sorted out, and once Shevchenko has that sorted out and figured out Andrade's movement and the way that Andrade is approaching the fight, because I don't think Andrade is the kind of person who can really switch on the fly. I don't think there's going to be like plan A, plan B, plan C with her. Once Shevchenko gets the rhythm of the fight, I think it'll turn into another dancing contest, and it'll move into her outpointing, outworking, outstriking. And if Andrade makes a terrible mistake, maybe she hurts her bad enough to stop the fight. But I think the champion retains on points, and again reminds us all how great she is.
There you go. 3 fairly emphatic picks for and still at the end of the flyweight title fight.